Welcome to CSC241 Computer Architecture. We're going to take our review of our module content, hopefully as close to the finish line or to cross the finish line as possible. Before we go there, I would like to share some quick details with you about the module one solution. So if we go in here to the module one solution, optimizing, oh no, that's HDL simulation. Okay. Remember that you do need to install Java. Just thought I would mention that real quick. So in terms of being able to finish that, if you're having problems, it's one thing we called out. So it's just a quick pointer. I'd also like to take a moment to share something about host specs and optimizing your technology. You'll find that the video is dated and it's based on an older version of Windows 10. And I would encourage you, as some other students have, to share their perspective. If you find that the video is frustrating because it's not, you have Windows 11. And there are too many places, this one place in particular where it was so different you had to kind of fish around. I'd like to hear from you, honestly. I'm kind of teetering on whether or not I need to re-record the entire segment in Windows 11. Bandwidth, personal bandwidth, is a bit of a challenge the first week or so of school, right before Labor Day, because there's a lot of additional things we're doing to help students get onboarded and up to speed and get the technology in a good place. And there's a lot of transition the first couple of weeks. But I am willing to go ahead. We have a long holiday weekend coming up, don't we? Labor Day. So as we come off of this week, Friday, and remember, Fridays are supposed to be kind of like a hands-on workshop day, right? So you bring your tech. If you don't bring your tech to each session, be sure you bring your personal technology to the classroom or have it right in front of you, as opposed to just viewing the content with us on a smartphone, right? So you want to be able to do things as I do them and work some details, because it's really kind of a cool opportunity to work show and tell. That said, we have a long holiday weekend. I can extend the deadline for this assignment and I can re-record for Windows 11 if I hear from enough students that yeah, it's taking a while to sort this out because the screen differences are that significant. I don't want it to be a burden. Each of us, however, and I'm going to say this, it's important for me not to foster, and I've been criticized by other faculty before, I'm not to spoon feed the students. Now, that's not a slap in your face, that's a slap in my face. You are not in high school, you are young adults, even though this is a sophomore level class, it's a 200 level class. What's implied here is, okay, if you're on Windows 11, you were probably on Windows 10 not too long ago. And you probably know where that Windows 10 stuff is still. And you probably could figure out, okay, here's where I need to go in Windows 11 because it's a different environment. And what are you? Well, you're a technology student or a computer science student or a cybersecurity student. So I shouldn't make assumptions that in every case you need to be led, along the path with breadcrumbs, right? It's convenient to have a video. And I will tell you that the strength of having that video, especially if it tracks precisely with the expectation, is that you will know when something is off or wrong. Not just with my material in the class, but possibly with your hardware or your personal technology. What am I saying? One of the principles that we like to promote in cybersecurity is that every person is a detector. Every one of you, the best cybersecurity weapon by far is an informed, technically capable user that knows the difference between this is normal and this is not normal. It's sort of like, this is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs, right? And here's a picture of the eggs in the frying pan. I don't know if you've ever seen that kind of commercial, right? So it's what I call a scratch the record moment. And so there is value in having, so I would argue the opposite too. So with my colleagues, I would say, but you don't get it. We're operating with the idea that we have an expectation of what's normal and expected. And if I hear from my students and they go, dude, you're that database thing, no, it's not at all like that. I'm like, what are we dealing with here? Oh, they rolled out a new version? You're using a different version of Access? See, it's good all around. It's good all around. Because the old version of Access was kind of retired prematurely. Why? Because it was getting hacked to death. And Microsoft made a decision behind the scenes. By the way, this just in, headlines, Microsoft blames equipment manufacturers for the Windows 11 hiccups that everybody's experiencing right now. Yesterday in class, I heard from, well, apart from class, I heard from colleagues that said, and by the way, I'm not recording all this right now, so this isn't gonna be a part of the recording because I'm sharing candid perspective here, right? So
You started the recording.
I did start the recording?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I don't think I'll edit much of this, but I might like clip little tweaks here and there. We're going to get back to the user account in just a minute. The thing that I would share with you is that a colleague said yesterday, hey, my screen wasn't working like it was, works fine in this room, works fine in that room, not working here. I come in here yesterday and in the middle of a class yesterday, I was ready to start part 2 of a 75-minute class, and the system wanted to reboot, and the screens went black, and there were all sorts of issues. Microsoft is blaming the hardware manufacturers for some of the things that are happening with instabilities on systems. Now, we're going to get into that later in the course. We're going to explain how there's this virtualization of hardware components, and that's the job of the operating system. So we're going to give you a teaser about operating system courses, but we can't, because this course is about hardware. We're going to explain how software can access the hardware. Have you ever wondered, all these apps are using the same hardware, right? Did you know in the real world, only one app can use a piece of hardware at a time? At a time, right? So that's an important consideration. And when we talk about hardware and how it operates to kind of share the wealth, that's a really cool thing. But the hardware manufacturers have to build a special piece of software called a device driver. A device driver is a software application that knows how to translate the physical to the virtual in a manner that the operating system can use. And those are very privileged applications. They operate on a very low level in a secure area of the operating system. And so hardware drivers have been known to create system instabilities or device instabilities. Speaking of instabilities, oftentimes the instability that you experience on your device or your PC or your Mac is not your doing. It's someone else, right? They're trying to hijack or hitch a ride on your system. And one of the most effective ways that you can prevent that, and I mentioned this in the assignment, right? So in this assignment, there's a segment that has to do with a user, setting up a second user. Does anybody know what I'm talking about here? It's in this assignment, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end of the video.
Yes, and one of the things that you need to understand, let's show and share a few things here. Among the programs and features that are installed on my system, most at this point in time are multi-user aware. What that means, and sometimes they're so multi-user aware, they'll actually give you a choice when you install them. They'll say, oh, are you installing this for this user or for all users? You may have seen a screen like that when you install apps. Those are applications that are multi-user aware, but not all applications are crafted in that manner. So it's possible that you can install an application with the root account, the lead account that you set up when you got your system and got it out of the box the first time. That's the admin account or root account. The bad news about the admin account and the root account is that it's an Achilles heel. People just want to use their stuff. So they get on the internet after they take it out of the box, it's all shiny and new. And anything that you click on, let me repeat that. Anything that you click on the internet, anything you click on when you're out on the internet using that account executes with administrative root privileges. Now that's worth repeating. You click anything when you're logged in online using messaging apps, you're in a web environment, 90% of hacks that end people's financial stability, empty their bank accounts, ruin their lives, steal their identity. 90% of the really bad thing, encrypt all your photos of your family weddings and your babies. 90% happen through web or messaging email applications. Now, how do you stop that? If you want a stable, optimized system, you create a second user account. And when you do that, you might find one of two things happens. For certain applications, some applications will stop working. So the trick is to first, and this is just kind of a quick workaround, but you got to be faithful about how you use the workaround. When you first create the account, make it an administrative account, log in offline, unconnected. Open up the apps, do the stuff you got to do, while that new account has administrative privileges, right? While the new account has administrative privileges, it will unhook the other resources that an application needs to run properly. Half the time you have an application that does not run with a standard user account, that's part of it. So all you got to do is load the account the first time. That provisions the user profile. It sets up the user profile in the user's directory. So let's show you what we're talking about here. In this user's directory, when I go into my computer or this computer in the C drive, there's a folder called users. Can everybody see this? Should I make it bigger? Make it bigger. There's a users folder, and inside that users folder are other folders, which are profiles of the logins that are set up, or the accounts that use this system. Now, some are intentionally set up in control panel. Others happen just because somebody logged in and they're in an enterprise environment. I want to tell you this, half the time something doesn't work properly in an enterprise environment, it's because people don't intentionally set up the user account using control panel to say to the system, oh, this person's going to be using this machine, and they're supposed to, right? When you're in an enterprise environment, you can go to the library, you can go on any screen, you can go to the computer labs, you can right, you can go to the classrooms, you can log in with your 900 number. But that doesn't mean that the University of the Virgin Islands intends for you to log in on that classroom computer, right? And that's another topic for another day. We get into a lot of that kind of stuff in networking and operating systems and cybersecurity classes. But where am I going with this? These folders represent the folks who are in here intentionally. When they signed on, this user profile was created. Hopefully, what should have happened, and this is what I did with mine, I went into control panel users, or you can go into accounts and settings, right? Accounts, where are we? Accounts. And when you set up other users and you add someone, does everybody see right here? I added my user account, right? Now, if I wanted to gain the benefit of added security and stability, all I'd have to do after I log in a time or two is change this. So I click on this and I can change the account type and make it a standard user account. Now there's another trick. There's two more tricks you can get to get an application to work properly. You can, if it doesn't work when you first log in with administrator privileges, what you should do is reload the application. So what am I saying? You're going to get the install media for that application, and while you're logged in as that new user, you're going to install it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, after it's installed and it's working, you're going to get out of there. You're going to go to the primary account that was set up when the system was first turned on, when you take it out of the box. You're going to pull up this screen that you're seeing right here, and you're going to click on change the account type. You'll go to your new account and make it a standard user. Now, if you encounter a problem at that point with your application, this is one of the biggest, baddest security problems in the world. Tech people are told all the time, I can't use this screen because I got software I need to load on here. And when I load it on here, it says, I got to be an administrator. I got to be an administrator. I got to be an administrator. So the tech folks do exactly what I just described. And then when they make that user a standard user again, they find out, oh, there are features they still can't use because they got to be an administrator. There's a trick, and it's a nice one. You tell users, if you're in the tech industry, if you're computer science or you're cybersecurity, you tell them that it's your job to be their shepherd and you don't want the wolves to eat the sheep. That's what you tell them. Don't play with this. If you had a child and they were reaching for a hot burner on the stove, how many of us would play around with that and be nice about it? How many of us would have a child that was running into a street and not looking, and we would be nice about it? What would you do to save the life of your child? You would say, I need your attention. You might not spank them, but in some households, if they're told not to go into the street without looking, and they do it, what happens? They get spanked, right? In other cases, people get their attention by getting their hands on both sides of the ears, and they say, look at me, because you know how little kids are. They're like, they don't want to look at you. They don't want to look in your eyes. It's kind of a visual thing, but like this, right? They're trying to avoid, and you get eyeball to eyeball with them, and you say, this is a serious moment. Now, if you are a technical professional, a computer science professional, or a cybersecurity professional, and this is a 200 series class, I'm going to keep it real. At this point, we're going to take the safety belts off, and we're going to talk about real world every now and then. I don't want to hear that any of my students were in a situation and they did not repeat and do as I am talking about right now. Because you will change lives for the better by being a steward of the knowledge that we sow into you. And one of these things is you're going to have people the rest of your life saying they have to be an administrator in order to be able to do their job. And you say, no, a technical professional, a computer science professional, a properly trained, qualified, certified person can get the hardware and the software to work without making you the lord of your own domain, to the detriment and insecurity of the rest of us. We're not putting a loaded gun in a child's hands. Now, you don't say that. You don't imply that somebody's a child, right? But the point is you say, we're going to make this work, and here's how you do it. Inside here in the C drive is another set of folders. It's called program files. Everybody see this? Those two folders? Did you know that if you go in there and you find the software that isn't working, right? Let's say that some Google software isn't working. We've got a Google app that's installed, it's not working. You go in there and you add their permissions for full privileges, go into the security tab, and you add that user account so that they have full permissions on that software folder, and the standard user can now do everything they need to do without being an administrator. Now, I know that that was quite a side trip here, and we kind of chewed up some time. But I promise you that as the course progresses, I'm going to be asking you to do more and deeper complex tasks with your computer, and you're going to face situations where it's just not working. And I want you to remember these moments that we're sharing this morning. You can make simple changes on your own system, and you don't have to operate yourself while you're online as an administrator. See, every year, every single year, I have students going into final exam weeks that come into my office and they're almost in tears and they say, every single year, every single semester, I have students that walk into my office and what they share with me is the old school equivalent of the dog ate my homework. And they have the final project for the hardware course, the operating systems course, the intro to cyber course, whatever course, right? The virtual machine course, the lab. And they say, my stuff blew up. And do you know my first question? Do you understand what I'm going to ask first? I'm going to say, what were you doing when it blew up? Because see, that student's going to ask for latitude. They're going to say, my stuff blew up. I need more time. This is a crisis. That's going to happen. Always happens. One or two students every single semester since I've been on this island in this university, right? And the first question I'm going to ask is, you remember optimizing your personal technology? When I asked, I presented that you can set up a screen where you have access to everything you need, but you have seatbelts and the digital equivalent of seatbelts and airbag on when you're out online. You're a standard user. Because you know, when you click on anything, it executes with executive, administrative, root, godlike privileges. They eat you. It's not a question of if, it's only a question of when. Every year we have people that have their stuff encrypted with ransomware and they go, Kentop, do you know how to work this out? I'm like, how much money you got? You know how to buy Bitcoin? Because unless you did certain things, sometimes the only option you have is to pay them. And that's crazy. If you do a few things up front, it'll never happen. The golden thing to do is to take the time in this assignment. Now, every year we get people who rush the assignment and they work through it and they're like, okay, it's taking forever for the updates to download. Okay, it's taking forever for the disk defrag to run. Okay, it's taking forever for the disk cleanup to load. That's because if you've never done it before and your stuff is 3 or 4 years old, oh my gosh, is there a bunch of crap in your system? It's just the way we live now. Every time you go out on the internet every day, you pick up extra trash. And that's what happens. The people who sell the hardware are praying that's what you're doing. And they're praying. I'm getting melodramatic here, and I'm trying to preach a little here, so I want you to bear with me, and we'll be done in like 2 more minutes, okay? I promise. The people who sell you the computer hardware, it's a dirty little secret in our industry. They are praying that you don't clean your hard drive. You don't use the utilities. You don't know how a Mac automates the process, so every now and then, like once a quarter, you just install an app or remove an app that you don't really use because Macs do it automatically. Or if you're Windows, you do the optimizing your personal technology thing. They're praying that you don't because their Christmas goodies and their Christmas bonus depends on users being lazy and being stupid because they don't put on seat belts and wear airbags when they're online. So the very first question that I'm going to ask of that poor man or woman that walks into my office that goes, it's finals week and my stuff blew up. I'm going to say, how did it blow up? Okay, you were online and which account did you use? Wait for it. Wait for it. Which account did you use? Yeah, still waiting.
What do you mean?
Still waiting for you to answer that question. Did you use the standard user account I asked you to set up an assignment? Which assignment? Which assignment? Right? Which assignment is this? Is it in the 3rd module? The 4th module? No, it's in the 1st module. It's in the very beginning of the course. And which assignment is it? Okay. Oh, it's the 2nd assignment after saying, oh, here's my proof I got the textbook. It's the first thing I ask you to do. And I didn't make creating a separate user a requirement. It's not part of the criteria there. And every year I'm tempted to add it, but then I realize, you know, sometimes people don't have control over their own personal technology. They have to share it with other family members. It's complicated, right? I want you to go home and I want you to explain to people. And when they say, I don't like this account we use when we're online, you say, tough. It's finals week, 2 weeks from now, and I will help you load the app, but I'm not giving you, I'm not changing the permissions on there because I don't want this stuff to blow up or slow down, right? Now, the hardware is light years ahead of the software. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have an i9, are we 13th generation or 14th generation? What's the latest? 13th generation. I don't care if you have a 10-core 13th generation i9 $600 processor and a banging graphics card. You have the baddest gaming hardware on the planet. It will come down around your ears right around Thanksgiving. And so, yeah, I know I've kind of worn that out, but I've embedded an awful lot in that assignment, and I kind of watch and wait to see what kind of comments I get from students. And then later in the semester, I find out, okay, he did it right. She did it right. Oh, he didn't. Because nothing's working right, and it's slow, and they need help, and we're waiting. We're waiting for the screen to change 5 minutes into the assistance session because people aren't taking care of business. Put another way, this is like an automotive engineering program of studies, and each of you have cars, and it'd be like, you didn't change your oil, and you didn't maintain your car, and irony of ironies, you're the one that has the problem, right? So I just I want to get that off my chest, and I want to clear the air about that and share the expectations. I don't want you to rush this assignment because you have Windows 11 and it's different. If it's a nuisance, I want you to send me an email and say, yeah, it's a nuisance and here's where. It really took extra time. But this is actually more important than this. Because this assignment means you'll be good for the whole semester. And no, I didn't require you to install an extra user account. It's not even listed in here. But if you watch the video and you do everything, you're going to ask questions about it. And I'm very thankful that some of our students are asking about it. It means they actually watched this whole thing and they tried to do everything that we recommended. Okay? 25 years of experience as a Microsoft certified engineer, that some of that stuff is in there, right? So please do as much as you can, even the stuff that isn't listed, especially the user account, okay? All right, now, what I'd like to do is pause for a moment and then literally pause for about 30 seconds and give everybody a chance to stand up and stretch and take a breath. And then what we're gonna do is pivot. I'm gonna get back into the module study guide and I'm gonna show you some additional resources that will help with your acquisition of new thinking process for binary and hexadecimal, okay? So Zoom recording. Can everybody see the screen again?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you for bearing with me while I evangelized on a point that affects hardware and software. By the way, you might ask, okay, I'm using a standard account. What happens when it's actually protecting me? When the airbag engages and the seatbelts catch? You'll be out on the internet or you'll be working with email or messaging, any app. You can have WhatsApp on your laptop and on your smartphone. And it can be a vector through which nasties will hit you because, you know, it's an environment that's shared between those devices. So you can protect your hardware. What we'll notice is that when you're using the standard user account instead of the administrative account, the first account you set up, When you're out on the web or doing email, you might get a pop-up that says, hey, you need to enter your administrative password. I guarantee you that if you do this within the first month, you will, first week, sometimes in the first day, a little pop-up will go, hey, you need to enter your admin credentials. And you're like, wait, whoa. And I know some of you are thinking, okay, he's back on that topic again. No. Let me finish. You're going to smile every time that happens, because what that means is that something is trying to gain control on a very low level with root permission. And if all you're doing is clicking on a web or answering an email, why would you need to provide root administrative privileges to read an email? Everybody understand what I'm saying? Why would you need that just to click an option on a website? That's your first clue. Something's trying to get on your stuff, right? Okay, enough said. In the study guide for this course, and let's kind of jump back where we were. There we go. Here we are. In our study guide, we're going to have a binary worksheet, and what we want to do is give you an opportunity to practice some of the things that we talked about in our last class. So we started to walk through how the binary and hex works. And we told you to memorize this series. So by the time we have our module assessment, everybody should be able to go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 1, 28, 256, 5, 12, 10, 24, 20, 48, 40, 96, 8, 1, 9, 2, 16, 5, 36, blah, 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 just that fast, right? And that's going to help you. Everybody's going to know the equivalent of a hex value in binary. Echo is 1110. So we have those worksheets. I'm going to show those to you in a moment. But one of the coolest things you can do in your head is you can shift. So if you take, and I'm not making this up. Let's take the binary equivalent of 4, the number 4, the decimal number 4. What is the binary equivalent of the decimal number 4? Anyone? 100. It's 100. That is correct. Did you know that if I shift the numbers, the binary numbers, one place to the left, I've doubled it. So if you get a binary value for a number like 47 and you shift left, you double it. The point is that that's how computers do. You quadruple it, you octuple it. It's times 16, it's times 32. Each shift to the left doubles in number. You remember the series I just asked you to memorize? What happens to this number of hosts on a network if I shift the subnet mask? There's another discipline, right? Networking. When the computer, if you decrease the subnet mask by 1, you're shifting 1 to the right. That cuts the number of possible connected systems in half, or in quarter, or to 1/8, or to 1/16. That number series comes back over and over and over again in hardware and in networking, okay? So it's really cool. If you shift to the left, you double. If you shift 2 places to the left, you quadruple. If you shift 3 places to the left, it's 8 times or 1/8, right? Depending on the direction. And we're going to ask you to do that in some cases. I'm going to give you a binary value. I'm going to say, okay, we shift twice to the left. What's the number? You're going to go, oh man. Well, you figure out what the decimal number is first, and then you figure out how many shifts, and you go, okay, that's 1/8. Or better yet, you just shift. This is the cool part. See, the first method is to convert to decimal and then work the operator. Oh, I'm taking 1/4 of this, so the value is 1/4 of this. That's what you're going to want to do. but don't. Just do the shift and then look at the number and go, oh, that's 1010. That's hexadecimal A or decimal number 12. See, once you know what those binary numbers represent, when you do the bit shift, you're just going to slide left or right, and then you're going to go, oh, I know that number. And you'll just tell me. That's where the genius math stuff comes in, where, you know, you've seen them on game shows. It's like, quick, multiply 157 times 8. And somebody goes, boom. They're like, oh, how did you do that? Well, they took 157, they converted it into ones and zeros, they shifted it 3 places to the left, and in their head they went, oh, that's what this is. And they just read it back because they know what those mean. I'm just saying, it's really cool once it clicks. The first time it clicks, it's pretty sexy. I mean, it's just, well, there's no feeling like it in the world. You're like, I'm starting to think like a computer. And that's literally some of the stuff that becomes apparent. Now, once you get to that point, you can work at places like NVIDIA or Intel or AMD and make $160,000 a year within 3 years of your graduation, and I'm not making that up. So don't take this lightly. Now, there is a caution about bit shifting. There's a couple of things you have to keep in mind. You have to, when you slide in one direction, you have to have placeholders. So if you slide, you got to remember there are leading zeros. Just like there's a difference between 10, which one would you rather have in dollars? The one that has a 0 behind it or the one that has 3 zeros behind it? Which one would you rather get paid right now?
3 zeros.
Oh yeah, sure you would. So do the number of zeros count?
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah, right? Now, it's considered good practice to retain the leading zeros, even though we know that 10 is really 0, 0, 10 in decimal. Just humor, when you're working in binary at first, keep the leading zeros in the mix, because as you're shifting, you don't miss something. And just like you don't want to miss being paid 1,000 versus $10, right? Also, if you're sliding to the right and you hit a 1, if you slide one more place, the 1 falls off. That's when things don't work anymore, right? So there is a limitation to how bit shift calculations work. If you slide to the right and there's the last number is a 1, you slide to the right, well, where does the 1 go after it's beyond the 2 0 place? It disappears. But then the value that you get from the calculation is wrong. So that's another thing we want. That's what these cautions and double cautions are about. Now, I have written this out, and if you read it explicitly, most people just say, oh, okay. But I want you to notice, I've kept the leading zeros here. Even though I've taken this and I've shifted it 2 places to the left, when I shift this 2 places to the left, the 1 0 becomes a part of the next D word or nibble, right? I still have the same 1 0. Look at this, 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0. I still have 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0. But now I have three D word values. I have 3 sets of 4 bits, right? Instead of 2 sets of 4 bits. So the value here is 0 0 1 0. Well, what's the decimal equivalent of that, or the hexadecimal equivalent of that? What is 0 0 1 0? Just taken by itself. This is, yes, it's the decimal version of 2, or the hexadecimal version of 2. The 1's place is empty, so there's no 1. The 2's place is turned on, so you can think of these as switches. When each of those places are turned on, the value has to be counted, right? So the 2's place is turned on with a 1. That's the electric power that's running. So the first value is 2. What's this? 1 0 1 0. Well, we already know. Isn't that 8, I think?
No, 10.
It's 10. Isn't that A?
Yeah.
Yeah. So practice, because it's easy to get thrown. What's 1 0 0 0? If you take 1 followed by zeros and you take it out, it's 1, it's 2, it's 4, it's 8, it's right. So 1 0 0 0 is 8. So if I shift to the left 2 places, I quadruple the value of alpha as a decimal number. And we can prove this. What are we saying? If I take you can take the programming calculator and work this directly, okay? So if you open up calculator and then you say, I'm not using the standard, I'm going to use the programmer calculator, right? If I take and I click on binary, if I do this, I say 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0. It automatically converts. It says, okay, in hexadecimal, it's AA, right? Everybody see that? And in decimal, it's equal to the decimal number 170. Now, what happens if I multiply by 4? Or if I slide the bits 2 places to the left, I multiply by 4. Well, what's 4 in binary? Because I've selected binary. Isn't it 1 0 0? Yeah. 4 is 1 0 0. So I want you to practice interoperating like that. And in order to do that, I'm going to post some worksheets and some handy guides. Here's a really cool thing you can do. Here is the binary. So this is a spreadsheet. Can everybody see this? So this is another way of working it, right? If you have 1 and 1, the 4 and 2 are turned on, the 8 is off, the 8 is off. So if I add these, I have 4 and 2 together, that equals 6. But you can noodle with the values and it'll automatically calculate those. So I'm going to put that online, just for you to mess with. Well, what am I saying? What if I do this? Well, if I've turned on 8, that means I have an 8 here. Which means that I have an 8 plus a 4 plus a 2, so that should be 14 here then, right? So what I can do is, this is supposed to auto sum. Oh, yeah. All right, I'm gonna noodle with that, but basically there's a formula missing there. I'll fix it. Essentially, you can turn these on like lights, and I've got them highlighted with different colors just to emphasize the point. Have a look at the hexadecimal calculator or the hexadecimal spreadsheet. There is a worksheet, right? So I'm going to ask you to convert, and then I'll have an answer key. So we'll post that separately. It's something that we'll do next week. But right now, what I'd like you to do is to take the study guide all the way to the bottom here, right? So please work your way through there. If you read something that doesn't make sense, you're like, you know, I've read this and I know you talked about it in class. I'm still not clicking. Then we'll walk through some examples together, okay? We're going to close out now. Does anyone have any questions before we end the session? Going once. All right, going twice.